open session at 6 o'clock. And during closed session, we voted 4-0 to accept the resignation of Mr. Tirico, and his last day of work will be Friday, August 23rd, 2019. And I just want to say thank you for your service to the district. We really appreciate it. If we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're at 4.0 to consider approval of the consent agenda. I want to clarify, as I brought up before when we adopted the agenda, that we're going to be approving the consent agenda with a small amendment on item 4.6. It needs to be amended from room 17 to room 18 in terms of the contract covered under that amendment. So if I could have a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
I move to approve as amended.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passes 4-0. Okay. 5.0, reports from district organizations, councils, or committees. Did you have anything that you wanted to report out?
I have nothing to report.
Survived the first week of school?
Barely. And not by my fingertips. Yep, we have nothing. I mean, just to say that SRTA is going to make an effort. We'll be meeting with Mr. Ryan on a monthly basis. And that's it for that. We're going to, this is exciting. We're going to be looking at the contract with Melissa.
Yeah, Jill proposed that we have a steering committee made up of her and the vice president and Ms. Alderman and I to go through the contract, come up with solutions for language issues, take it back and have them approve it, and then just approve it through site letters. And then when we get it all done, we're going to just put the contract and get a contract through. So we're really excited to have that opportunity to work, ongoing work on it instead of waiting for formal negotiations.
Just going to get it done.
Get it done. Absolutely, yeah.
Sounds great. Did you have anything more?
No, just, school year starting off and little hiccups here and there, but we're doing well.
Okay, so we're gonna go to 5.2, reports from school principals, directors, etc. So, Ms. Sneedy.
I have, just want to say it's been a very steady and very, I would say, calm start this year. This is my third year, or going into my third year. We've got most of our positions filled. We have a couple bumps and scrapes, but I'm okay with that, and we're handling it as it has popped up. Getting ready to start our teletherapy program again at Wilson Mills and Santa Rita, and also tightening up that process a little bit too. So, and working very closely with the site administrators there, and everybody's excited. And so we're adding some occupational therapy to Santa Rita Elementary this year via teletherapy, because that site doesn't have special day class students. So a lot of the occupational therapy sessions are fine motor skills. We did a little test run of it at ESY, and it went great. So we think that's going to be a good resource for us, especially as the need is growing at the sites where we have special day classes for those types of therapies for kids. I was really pleased with myself to be able to get to each site over the course of the first 4 school days to see all the special education programs, staff, and people, especially our expansion at New Republic, adding the special day class for TK, K, and 1, and they're absolutely darling. Had a really great time seeing them in action. We have a new teacher there, and she's fabulous. And then also the expansion of the preschool and the STC class at Gamble View. But all in all, I got to every single school site, as well as now in my department, Peter Fleming and I were able to provide support and help for all new SPED teachers in any way that they need, whether it's technical, classroom, how to communicate with parents, whatever you need. So that I think the SPED department feels supported, I hope, and comfortable. And we seem to have a good handle on that. Also, I just wanted to follow up. I know that Sarah, you had mentioned a presentation from our counselors. I would like to target September for that. I want to give everybody a chance to kind of settle in. We do have a counselor that's currently on leave, baby bonding leave, so she'll be returning. So I kind of would like to get her back also, because her site is one of our largest sites but it's on my to-do list. And we did, Caesar and I were able to get the last counselor position filled about 2 weeks before school starts. So we ended up with a candidate who's very passionate about middle school counseling. So John and I did the interviewing and it worked out very well. So we were able to get our counselors placed where they feel their strengths are, and they're happy with that, because when you're happy, your productivity goes up and all of those pieces. So pretty pleased with all of that. So the counselor presentation is on my radar. I just want to kind of get them all started, and I'd kind of like to wait for Ms. Lopez to be back also and be part of that if you feel like that's appropriate.
Absolutely, I don't think the board has any issues with it.
Okay.
Yeah, even if it needs to be October, you
Okay.
know, then just when they feel like they have a handle on what they want to present.
Great. Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Olivia?
Yes, so I'll just share some of the updates that are, some things that are going on in the business department. We have our categorical analyst moving into a full-time position, as I mentioned previously. So I think this is a great opportunity because just the job, the job title that she has is categorical analyst. We used to get categorical grants about 8 years ago, and then they stopped giving us that funding because with the LCFF funding that was replaced. So it's a great opportunity to go over the job title and the job description and align everything to what the business office needs at this point. So I'll just provide more updates as we go. My team's still working on the clusters audit findings. We are making progress, and it's a lot of work. We're getting there slowly. Also wanted to give out some updates in regards to the 45 state budget revision. We are in compliance, like I stated before. Some of the, I want to share a document that is passed out to all the districts in California. This is a key guidance that is put together by all the county offices of education. And then they just pass it around to all the school districts in California, because there's so much changes, so much going on. They just give like a little summary, a snapshot of all the updates. So some of the biggest changes and recommendations for the 45 budget revision is the COLA, the 3.26. We don't have to worry about that because that was included on the budget adoption. There's also the CalSTRS and the CalPERS. There was a difference on the percentage for the contribution. And I have a handout that it says how much was adopted and what was the change. Can you have those pictures?
Yeah, of course.
And the difference in the amount of money, so you can get an idea. So it was not really a big difference. It's not something significant that we need to do a revision for it. The difference will be about $23,000. So that's not significant for a district. For a district, 1% will be a little bit more over $400,000. So 23,000 is not really something that we need to retake the budget again for a 45-day revision. The other big change was the additional funding for special ed preschool grant that's gonna come through our Fund 12, and I reached out to the state that they have a new rate. So that's not a new grant that we need to apply, it's just on the new rate with the contract. They're not gonna have the new contract until September. So that's gonna come in with the first interim. There's also additional funding for special ed through the CELPAS. And this is a grant that we received through Monterey County through the AB 602. And I reached out to the county as well, and I provided some information, and I asked them to see if they had an amount of how much more funding we'll be getting, but they don't have this information. They haven't got anything from the state. But they did mention that they were gonna have something for me before the first interim. And that's pretty much for you to read if you're interested, if you have any questions, I'm always available.
So are you showing on this one here, is just that the net changes on the 20%?
Yeah, from what we adopted to what the government adopted in June.
Mr. Strickler?
It was a pretty big year for summer for hiring. We had 26 new teachers. It was supposed to be 27, but one of our candidates just kind of withdrew his application, literally at the last minute. So we're still short one year staffing. But and here from what I hear from the site principals and the main folks that are doing a great job. So just want to thank Nadine for all of her help. We hired a lot of special ed staff, and it was really collaborative. So we basically really good quality people in positions that are traditionally very good. So I'm excited about that. We're going to continue working on credentialing issues. I had a really good work session with the credential analysts at MCOE, and they really basically took apart their master schedules at the 2 middle schools and looked at all their credentials and what they're allowed to teach and how do we make it all compliant. And it's good practice because this is the year that they're actually going to audit all the sites. So usually they just audit our 2 Williams sites, but every 4 years they will. And this is the year. So we've already started the process for the 2 middle schools. I'm sure we'll do it.
I'm working with principals to finalize their budgets, and then Rosa and I can get to work and start building those. The elementary principals went over to Monterey Peninsula High School District yesterday to visit Lamesa Elementary. They toured about a dozen classrooms, did some learning walks, specifically around math instruction, small group instruction and math. The TOSAs will be going to visit that same site next week on Tuesday, and then the feedback I got from the principals is that they had a great visit and lots of great ideas. You know, in Olivier's home, she took some photos. She's, you know, got some teachers that she'd like to go there to visit and see what they're doing. The principals are setting their goals around math with Denise Green and meeting with her monthly, and then she's getting into PLCs on Wednesday with the different grade level groups of teachers. And working with Nicole Jensen to get our new PE model really off to a great start, and so we can build things as we go, such as sessions with Denise Green with math. Now that if we go through and get our contract with MCOE for that. But I just wanted to point out Nicole's been working with our AVID leads at our middle schools to really get that off to a fantastic start. And it sounds like the sites have had their first meeting and things are going really well. We've got some sessions that we're going to be sending some other teachers to over in Monterey this fall, just to get those AVID strategies expanded while we have a close place that we can get them over there for that training.
That's good. So we're gonna reports from board on activities or meetings attended. Jake, can we start with you?
I didn't attend anything, but I do want to say thank you to the board and the team for the recording now. Another way to engage the community so they can see kind of what's going on when they can attend meetings. Thank you everybody who was part of making that happen.
I passed. I didn't have anything other than I had a great summer vacation.
No, I didn't have any kind
So just, I attended the spaghetti dinner for the AVID program at BK, and it was kind of nice because as I was coming in, parents who've been there for orientation were leaving, and even in the parking lot, people were so happy. You know what I mean? Like the parents talking to the kids, like it was just super, super positive. And I mentioned it to both the principal and the assistant principal when I saw them. You know, this is people leaving so excited about where their children are going to be going to school. So I love that. And I really appreciated all the staff doing the spaghetti for the families and doing the AVID kickoff, and Brenda Burke came up to me afterwards and just, it really warmed my heart because she was so excited about what she's doing and just the opportunity to do something the right way and to serve the kids. So that was great. And I had a similar comment related to special education that I had friends talk to me about coming to work for us in special education and leaving another district because she was so excited about what was going on here. So that was really a compliment, I thought, to our district. And I attended the breakfast on the first day, staff development, which is really good. It's nice. And I loved the video presentation. That was awesome. And then the last thing I really appreciated, and I don't know if Tim's going to speak about it or not, but just our district has been housing Salinas Valley RIF for the past 2 years, and that was something that I brought to the board and asked them to do a couple of years ago when they lost their storage space at North County, and I've just been so grateful that we're doing that. You know, for those of you, it provides 18,000 children in Monterey County with free books, 3 times a year, and in preschool through 6th grade. So the fact that we're providing them the storage space, that they don't have to, us providing them free storage allows them to buy more books and serve more children because they're not having to rent a space. And there are a lot of different people who do the volunteer work. Nobody's paid to work for RIF, so they were just incredibly grateful for us to continue to support that program. So I just want to express my appreciation.
Did we have that moved over to classroom?
Yes, this summer. It actually out of a classroom space into more of a storage type space because we needed the room for, we needed the classroom to be a classroom, but thank you to Tim and the maintenance department for making that work to allow them to continue to organize the program. So thank
Where
you.
is it?
Nope. It's right here in this warehouse.
Oh,
So, and we've got a big 2 foot by 4 foot sign coming Monday morning that they're gonna put right there that says reading is fundamental, so everybody that comes will know where it's at. We're putting in a power door for them, so they don't have to
right.
roll a chain and so they'll be able to have their shipments and stuff back right. I mean, we put in some paving there to make that driveway solid. And so they have more room now, and it's a functional warehouse where they can have books coming in. They have a place to put them. They don't have to, it was really tight back there. So this is actually working out a lot better. We knew we had to move them. We had some containers. They weren't the right size when they got here, and it all happened one morning. And Nadine, or it's Nadine or Melissa, somebody said, well, what about this thing next door? What are we going to do with that? So we went over, and Victor Sandoval and the guys just came in and just like a whirlwind, and we met with them that next morning after I got the call from Sarah, and we just made it happen. It happened just in a matter of an hour. We had it all fixed.
Nice.
So it was easy, and they're great. And I know we had a conversation about, how can we keep, housing them or something like that. But it's reading, and our kids get to enjoy it. And quite frankly, I think it's a great advertisement for our district that we're the ones that are housing, but for the entire county, that Santa Rita Union School District is where the RIF, it's where it starts and ends. So we're going to do everything we can to keep them. But classrooms, we can't use classrooms anymore because we have a development coming in, and we got to use those classrooms. So I guess I'm doing my report now.
You are. So 5.4, reported superintendent.
Well, so just the RIF is taken care of, and it was really a good meeting with them. And then we had an administrative retreat with all the principals to kind of set the tone for the year on the 25th and 26th. And then on August 2nd, we had our kickoff breakfast. Sarah came, and I'm sorry, I sent out the invitation the day before, and I was late getting it out, so I apologize for that. I'll make sure I get those things out sooner. It was a great breakfast just because it was good food, but also we did a recognition of our longevity of our staff for everybody that had more than 20 years, more than 25 years, more than 30 years, more than 35 years, and for one teacher, more than 40. So we did, and now, from now on, that'll just be part of our opening ceremonies for the year. But we'll cut it down to just those people that are on that year. But I want to do it for everybody because we hadn't done it since I've been here, and I didn't want to miss anybody. And then we kicked off the year, and we set a new vision because, as I told the teachers, there's an old proverb that says, without vision, the people perish. And I said, so we're going to have a vision for this year that's going to carry us. So everybody's going to know it. If you walk into a classroom on back to school night, you should be able to point to a teacher and go, what's our vision? And they should tell you that it's going to be their school. It's Santa Rita, where we all learn and grow. And I said, we all learn and grow because it starts with me. So I shared my stretch goals with the entire staff. And I said, my stretch goals this year are I will be in every single classroom in your district at least once a month. And I will make it to one professional learning community meeting once a month. And then I'm going to be with Chuck and Victor to see every site and every kitchen once a month. And I shared that with them because I told them, I want you guys to hold me accountable. If you don't see me in a few weeks, I want you to call me or drop a text or something and go, hey, Tim, I haven't seen you. Are you coming? When are you coming? Juanita is working with me. I've already got all my visits scheduled. I had one on Monday. I have another one Friday. I'll have 4, and then I'll have 4 next week. And then the next week I'll be with Chuck and Victor making some site visits. If I'm not out there, then they don't know that it matters. And then if it doesn't matter to me, then why should it matter to them? So I just want them to know how much they matter and how much what they're doing matters. And I thought it was something we're already getting staffs that are sending up pictures of T-shirts, and Sat Watt sent it to me. She got a T-shirt that says "Learn and Grow" on it. And and the very first morning I went to all the sites on the first day of school, and there were already teachers making posters and coming up with to make it like New Republic, where we all learn and grow, McKinnon, where we all learn and grow. So it's taken off. I think it's something that we can all just kind of hold on to, because I told them if we all learn and grow, if all these students learn and grow, test scores will take care of themselves. We don't have to focus on a certain number. We need to focus on all the kids learning and growing, and then we'll live with the results because they're going to be good. I know that we mentioned it at the meeting that our preliminary results, these aren't at the state level yet, but we went up 3 percentage points in English language arts last year, and we went up 1% in math, which isn't good enough. We've got a math improvement plan that Melissa will be rolling out at the next meeting. So, like I said, met with Jill and Kate, and have an exciting agenda for SRTA just in general, and also negotiations and really turning it into a partnership. That was one of the things that we were advised to do by our legal counsel. And Lou just said, why don't you guys just work on this together, and he's right. So we're going to sit down and work together and try to get a great contract. If we have a great contract, we get great teachers. If we have great teachers, then great things happen. So I'm looking forward to that. And then just like I said, we've got some open houses coming up. We've got 2 tomorrow night. Melissa will take one. I'm going to take one. And then next week we have a couple, and then I think we have one the following week. And then New Republics was the 5th. Was the day before school started, right? So, but that's it. And it's been a great start, and everything is running really smoothly, and I'm really excited to get out. I've already been at the sites quite a bit, but it's really fun to walk into a classroom and the teacher just keeps teaching, because they already know, who I am. And when even the kids look and go, oh, yes, I don't know his name, but I know he's in here. So it's been a lot of fun, and it's really fun to get into classrooms anyway and watch kids and teachers do their thing. So I'll keep you up to date on that. That's all I got.
So we're going to move on to 5.5, receive hearings of individuals desiring to address the board on items not on the agenda. Anyone in the audience? Okay, going once. All right, we're going to go on to 6.1, ratify a 1-year agreement with Mission Linen Supply for linen services at our school cafeterias for a cost not to exceed $6,100.
Yeah, so this is a contract with Mission Linen. They've been our linen providers for the last few years. They do our tablecloths for catering, our aprons and towels and so forth. We had to go ahead and get them set up. No board meetings in July, we got to get them set up, so it's just a ratification. We're also looking at possibly going to them for maybe some not uniforms, but some shirts for the staff so they can kind of, feel like a department and not just, so that would be coming down the road. That's not included in that cost, so if that happens, it'll be additional.
Any board questions?
I like the idea of the t-shirts.
Anything else? Okay. Can I have a motion?
I move to approve.
Second. All those in favor?
Right.
Aye. Passes 4-0. Okay, 6.2, ratify a one-year agreement with Sequential for grease trap services at our school cafeterias for a cost not to exceed $1,250.
So similar situation, we had to get them, didn't have to, but ideally you get them done in the summertime, right? So the students aren't there. So we went in and took care of that. They recommended more pumping from the grease trap, but I said, let's just start with the one for each. We don't do a lot, I mean, we can't do a lot of grease and stuff like that. So our grease traps aren't that bad, but we do need to get it done once a year at least, so.
Questions?
I just want to say, I'm glad you have a service. I think that the classified people don't get paid enough to do that. It's icky.
We wouldn't ask them to. I wouldn't ask them to do something I wouldn't do.
Okay, can I have a motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes 4-0. Going on to 7.1, consider approval of a request for a provisional intern permit for single subject in English and 2 multiple subject provisional intern permits.
This is just part of our credential cleanup. These are our candidates that are missing some of the prerequisites to enter our program. So by allowing this gives them the authority to the authorization to teach for 1 year with this permit, which is not removed and expires after 1 year. So really it kind of pushes them along, giving them extra time to get all the requirements done, like teaching in the classroom, and then allows them to turn in their program.
And are they still working on getting their credentials?
Yes.
As well?
So this allows them to, they're missing some of the prerequisites to get into the program, and this allows them to get additional time. And usually it's the CSAT, or one of the CSATs that they haven't passed yet, and allows them to entry into the program.
So they're not in the program yet, there's a lot to do the requisites, things like that.
Any other questions? No? Okay. Can I have
a motion to approve? The second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Passes 4-0. Editorial comment, they should not have to pass the CSAT before they go into a credential program. It was the other way around when I got mine, and it's just putting the cart before the horse. It's ridiculous. Apparently the state does not care that
Don't trigger me.
I.
Caesar already did that about 45 minutes ago.
Yeah. So 8.1, informational first reading for cessation of disposal of Chromebooks that are operational through gifting to 8th grade students.
In the spring of 2017, we did it through the same process where we brought it to the board. We voted to use a disposal plan for Chromebooks that were at or nearing their end of life at that time. And we had some Generation 1 Chromebooks that we needed to cycle out of our inventory. And it was proposed and accepted by the board that while it was economically feasible and while this fit our goals of needs as a district, that we would give them to 8th grade students at the end of their 8th grade year. Right now, our current Chromebooks that are at the middle schools have a remaining life cycle of 3 to 6 years beyond this school year now. And I gave you the approximate 201,000 annual cost of replacing 6th grade Chromebooks this year. And this puts us with 3 to 6 years beyond this year for the life of the Chromebooks that are there. And also another thing that I wanted to bring for your information is that when we began this process, also another consideration was that the local high school district did not offer one-to-one devices yet, and they do now. And so what we saw this summer was an increase in students and families who sold their Chromebooks that they received from Santa Rita right after the school year, because we had to unlock a couple of them and things like that. And so just wanted to bring this back, and if you're agreeable, I'll bring it back as an item at our next board meeting so that we can work on that and get information out to our students and our families that eighth grade students will no longer be receiving them.
So what's the current process? They give away that they have the Chromebooks for 3 years?
They, right, they have the Chromebooks for the 3 years, and then they receive their Chromebook at the end. And so what we've also seen is quite an uptick in the damage on the devices and the amount of funds we're having to pay to keep the devices working during the 3 years now, on top of the cost of replacing all sixth grade Chromebooks, because that's our new round of Chromebooks at the time.
And so do all eighth graders get the Chromebooks, or is it, so does it matter?
If they've had, no, it would be at the end of eighth grade. There's consideration for their academic standing as well as their behavioral standing. So if we have a student who has damaged a Chromebook beyond repair and they owe the price of a Chromebook, we won't cycle in a new one to give that student. So there's some parameters in there, just limiting a small number that we wouldn't the student would receive as well.
So what percentage of eighth graders actually do consider the limitations of this?
The vast majority of them. It's
Would you like
usually less,
95?
I would say it's less than 12 at each site a year that don't receive, there's 12 students, I mean, so,
At each time, okay.
yes.
And that's out of how many students?
We go through about a little over 200 eighth graders at each site.
I would not have a problem stopping the program specifically because Salinas Union High School District is now giving Chromebooks to the incoming freshmen, which was not happening when we instituted this program. So I feel the reasons that we did it was for the families to have access to the internet, or a device to use at home. But since all the ones that are staying in Salinas, that's going to be possible anyway. I think one of the major reasons that we were doing this is not there anymore.
They're gonna
They're going to get
Freshman
on when
grade
they
and
start as a
then
freshman.
Before they weren't. They were-
Plus, I found it really disheartening to find out that they're selling them.
Yeah.
So. I don't know what we plan to do with them.
Well, what we would do is, when the eighth grade class turns them in, we'll cycle those devices back down to sixth graders. So the new purchase would only be for additional students who come in or devices who have been damaged, which have been damaged beyond repair, that we would replace those. And getting into more of a cycle of taking care of your device during that 3 years, because it is going to belong to another student. Getting us back into that sort of format of how we manage the Chromebooks and the devices and the care for those, since they do still have quite a life cycle. I'm looking at it from an economic standpoint as well. Right now, we're spending over $200,000 on new devices each year when we have devices that could last us. And so there's that factor as well. And at the next meeting, I'll also be bringing an item for disposal of the remaining Gen 1s that we had to cycle out of elementary school this year, which we needed to buy approximately another 800 Chromebooks for elementary this year, which was unexpected because they would no longer update to what's going to be needed this spring for the SBAC assessment. And so our only option was to cycle those out. So we will have some devices on hand, and I'll bring an item for approved disposal of those, and we'll include using them for parts as necessary, but that we can keep them on hand or give away when we do like a parent education thing, like how we did with Lowe's Fishes and Computers, and we supplied them with devices that we have as part of that, so that we can keep some of those initiatives going for families who do need a device at home.
Yeah, and I don't know exactly what the price is right now, but I know people recently got a Lowe's Fishes and Computers and they're giving them refurbished Chromebooks for $30 right now, so there's, you know, some more availability than there used to be. Okay, any other questions? Comments from the public? Okay, so my understanding, this is just an informational first reading, so we don't need a motion on this. Okay. We are going on to 8.2, approve resolution number 19.08.81 regarding child care and development contract.
This is a renewal of our state preschool contract for the 2019-2020 school year. Enrollment is steady right now, and we now have a new STC preschool teacher out there, so things are going quite dynamically well. And this is just standard renewal of our contract.
Motion.
Yeah, any questions before the? Yes, I need a motion.
Motion to approve 8.2.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 4-0, and I just couldn't be more pleased with the, that first, what we're providing to the community, but also, you know, the first year was really rocky, not because of anything we did, but because of outside forces and just the fact that we've, moved past that into just, you know, rolling forward is fabulous. Okay. 8.3, approved memorandum of understanding with the Monterey County Office of Education for the 2019-2020 school year for mathematics improvement.
So what I'm bringing to you is a contract for services with MCOE's mathematics administrator, Denise Green. The contract would allow us to have her in our district for the equivalent of 76 work days, or it may be half days, but that would be the full day equivalent of it at a cost not to exceed $50,000. This allows for time to work with our site principals, district leadership, as well as groups of teachers, and going into classrooms and coaching, presenting professional development, all with a focus on math improvement for our district.
Any questions?
No, just excited that we worked on this. Improve the math scores.
Any comments from the audience? I, as I mentioned before, I worked with Denise for a year in our county district and just had a fabulous experience doing that. So I'm really excited that she's going to be working with us. Can I have a motion?
Motion approved 8.3.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 4-0. Eight point four, approved 2019-2020 annual LCAP federal addendum.
This is new. In the past, I've brought to you an LEA plan that gives a narrative for what we use our federal dollars for in our district. And so the state of California, rather than having a separate plan, has created this document, which is an addendum to our LCAP. And it allows you to align the use of your federal dollars to your to supplement your LCAP goals. And so it's a little more streamlined, but it outlines what we use our Title I dollars, our Title II, our Title III, and our Title IV. So Title I has to do with our low performing students, particularly reading, math, EL, and some parent involvement activities, just to sum it up very quickly. And that's based on our unduplicated count of our students. So those who are low income, homeless, foster youth, and ELs, and they only count once. And then for Title II, that's our teacher and administrator preparation, professional development, those things that are geared more towards the professionals who work with the students. Title III has to do with our English learners, so it's very restricted and only based on our numbers of ELs in the district. And in a way, you could think of it as a supplement to Title I that's specific for ELs. And then Title IV is our well-rounded education. And while we only receive about $30,000 in that, that's going to the middle schools, particularly for their socio-emotional supports, safety activities that they're partnering with our SROs, as well as some of those other things that their counselors are putting into place. So, for example, Gavilan, you and Bolson Knowles both do sort of a counselor lunch for some students to allow them some little group session kind of time, and ways that they can fund some of those activities. And so this plan just sort of outlines that, how we're doing that with the different funds. And so I have the overall strategies that we're doing and how it aligns to our LCAP. So you'll see some similar language. I've identified how we look at our students, how we identify our students who are served by this, that we're school-wide because our percentages allow us to do school-wide. But still within the district, we know our percentages for the various student groups and the activities that we're doing.
Any board questions? Any questions? I have a motion.
Motion to approve 8.4.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Passes 4-0. Thank you. Okay. 9.1, global adoption of all board policies, including administrative regulations and exhibits.
So at long last, we're ready. Okay, I don't have much to say on that. I think everybody's aware of the process. We've done, we did a board meeting, also an evening meeting for the reps. Jacob came in, and one afternoon we did some policy reviews. So we've done a first read already. So it took a little bit longer than what CSBA had projected to us initially. But they did finally roll in July in a box, and so they were all here in hard copies. And it's my understanding that each board member received a zip drive for this. Otherwise, we'd have, this whole thing.
No, thank you.
So I am relieved, but also excited to have a full-on global adoption of policies because it drives all of our forms, right? Because you can cite current board policy on any document that you put out to the public, which we were doing before, but then when you checked, you saw that it was 2008, right? So really happy, but also relieved. I don't know if anybody has any questions, but I'm pretty excited to have this go through tonight. Any questions?
I'm excited as well. It's a long time coming. Is there a process in place? I know there's specific emails, updates, anytime there are new changes in laws. Who's going to be monitoring that within this
That's a
district?
great question. I don't think we're 100% sure, but you're right. You get quarterly updates, and as long as you keep up with your manual maintenance communication with the CSBA, it's pretty automatic. In some past experiences that I've had, I've been in charge of that piece. I'm not saying that I'm going to be in charge of that piece. I'm pretty full plate right now. However, it also, when they come in, if you need to delay it, it's okay too. It's just knowing that you need to do it. And some won't, many policy updates won't apply to us because we're not a high school district or those pieces. So that's the main step. What needs to happen tomorrow is we need to notify CSBA, that this was agendized, it was approved. And so what they will assist us with next is updating the web-based piece of it. So we already are linked to Gamut Online, but they will work on rolling all the new policies in so that any member of the public who wants to search those policies through the public search engine will be able to see the current policies.
Just finding out who's going to be, they know, so that we don't have an issue where for 10 years the policies don't get updated.
Yeah, that's unusual. That doesn't happen very often, actually.
I'll be taking care of it.
Okay.
No, I'll be doing the manual maintenance on board.
And now we've just made his job so easy, right? Manual maintenance from this point on is a piece of cake. We should do it. Let's do it.
Okay.
No, we'll do it.
I can make that happen.
I think what's important is that I understand how to do that. So if Tim couldn't, or if we needed to do it together, it could be bounced either way, depending on who needed to do it. I think the important thing is that we just need to know, I think it's October,
It's 4 times a
December,
year. There's one in March and
June, maybe, something like that. if I
Yeah,
recall.
so the June one, a lot of times we don't see until call.
Right.
Because they come in so late, but we'll be getting some probably a couple of weeks after we get this thing rolled out, so.
And Tim and I talked about on a couple items, we'll want to make revisions soon during the fall as we get some legal updates on some things and
Yeah.
find out what parameters we can really move within for the interdistrict transfer process. So that we can make any policy edits that we think is appropriate.
Any other board questions?
Just thank you, because I know you read through all of them with CSD, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes,
Yeah, it
that's,
Yeah,
that's
all
a
right.
big,
It was
thank
good
you.
occupational therapy. Right?
Yeah,
It's
that's
like
what I was
predictable
gonna
work.
say.
It was so
Big
predictable
job.
what I was gonna do every day. There was nothing, no surprises.
It was a big job and you did
I was happy to
great
do
job.
it.
Yeah,
Thanks.
so thank you.
My pleasure.
Any questions? Okay, can I have a motion?
Motion.
I move to approve.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
This is 4-0. Yay, it's a big goal met.
The goal.
Okay. 10.1 is approved board resolution number 19.08.10, committing to move to by trustee area election method in compliance with the California Voting Rights Act of 2001. And what we talked about earlier is just having a discussion of this and then potentially continuing the vote to our next meeting when Mr. Patel is here as well, in case he has any questions.
That's Devin Lincoln to come in. Devin is actually the one that recommended this to me. I completely didn't see it, but I just wanted her to come in and explain, why we do it, what's the purpose behind it, and then why would it be a good idea to wait until after the census, so.
Right, and I have with me my full PowerPoint, which I could run through, or I can just
You
speak
don't,
generally.
just.
Generally, it's fine.
Just-
Yeah, okay. So as many of you may be aware of, the California Voting Rights Act heavily favors a by trustee area method of election, which essentially means dividing a political jurisdiction into equally balanced population districts and electing a trustee or council member, whatever the organization is, to represent each of those areas. Presently, this district is an at-large district, which is not uncommon, and that means that trustees can reside anywhere in the district and represent the district as a whole. There are arguments that folks make in support of that kind of, but it's just in the sense that you're not representative of a part of the district, you're representative of the whole district. And some folks complain that trustee areas can create parochialism. However, as I said, the California Voting Rights Act heavily favors trustee area elections for a very simple reason. The California Voting Rights Act is intended to prevent racially polarized voting and is specifically intended to ensure that members of minority groups have a voice in the ballot box and have an opportunity to be heard. So in adopting trustee area maps, some of the factors we need to look at are history of political minorities and racial and ethnic minorities having an opportunity to elect candidates that represent them. If you have particular pockets, for instance, within your district with high concentrations of a minority population, one of the things that you would look at in cooperation with a demographer is how to make sure that to create a district that would tend to foster candidates representing that racial or ethnic minority having an opportunity to be elected. It doesn't ensure anybody a seat, right? But that's the intent. And so when I say that the CVRA, California Voting Rights Act, heavily favors trustee area elections, I would say any district or entity that has opposed an effort to transform into a trustee area election has generally lost in litigation to the tune of millions of dollars of attorney's fees. And so the process is one which you can initiate independently, and that's what the resolution in this packet would start the process for doing. And essentially, the board could decide this is something we're going to move towards. And I'll walk through what that would mean under this resolution in a minute. The other way that sometimes this transition happens is in the face of a demand from a member of the public that you make that transition. And typically what happens is that you would receive a letter from an attorney saying, I represent a client who's a member of a racial minority, and we are demanding that you transition to trustee area elections. Those letters come with a $30,000 attorney fee provision. And so where you receive a demand, there's cost associated with even if you then voluntarily transition. And the reason for that is that this presumption under the CVRA that letter was a catalyst you making the transition, and therefore you owe the attorney's fees of that potential plaintiff. And there's a process associated with that. And there's no suggestion, as far as I know, that there is any such party in the wings right now. And certainly a history of minority representation on your board can help ward off those kinds of claims. But they're real. They tend to congregate in geographic regions. So if I get one district in a county that's got a demand letter, I start talking to all the others about, making sure that having this conversation. However, the important fact looming over this whole discussion right now is that, as you all I'm sure are aware, we have a federal census coming up next year. And in 2020, data from that census we expect to be released anytime between May and September, March to September of 2021. March is the earliest, May is typical, but with all, I'm sure everybody's aware, there's been a lot of controversy about the census and from funding issues to what questions are being asked. And so there's some suggestion of folks who watch these things that census data may be a little bit late in releasing in 2021. But we rely on census data to shape trustee areas for obvious reasons. It's the best data we have as to who lives where within our communities. And so with that happening, if you were to decide, we want to become a trustee area district for 2020, and that's a viable choice, but you would be relying on data from 2010 to do that. And then you're required, once you do that, to then review and modify your districts when the new census comes out. So you could do it for 2020, but then you would have to do it for 2022 as well once you've made that election. And the reason is populations move around, and we want to make sure that they remain balanced. One person, one vote is the general principle. So if you have a big move, say, to a particular community and another district that has a smaller population, these are reasons you have to look at your maps again. So the resolution in the packet would propose to move 2 trustee area elections for the 2022 election, thereby waiting until that new data is released and delaying the costs associated with doing so until that time. In addition to the main cost associated with transitioning is demographic services. Is hiring a demographer to look at what's a balanced population district, providing and attending. The process typically encompasses 5 board meetings. So there's at a minimum. So that would be 2 pre-map hearings, just when the board takes input on what kinds of considerations to look at in drafting your maps. 2 post-map hearings, in which the public has the opportunity to comment on the proposed maps. And then finally, adoption. And then the maps would then be submitted to the county committee on school district reorganization. And those folks, which in this case is the county board, they sit in a different role as the county committee on school district reorganization. They would have the opportunity to approve. And then the final step is the law, strictly speaking, calls for an election amongst your voters to approve the new maps. However, we typically advise our clients to seek a waiver from the state board of that requirement because of the risk that you might not get the map approved, and you would have, engaged in all these efforts. And generally speaking, by the time you've gone through this public process, you've obtained a lot of input, hopefully. And every client that I'm aware of that's gone through a state board waiver process has received that waiver. So that's the process to get there. The options available to you are to not make the decision at all right now about moving to trustee areas, or to transition in 2020, or to transition with an intent for 2022. and we have a number of districts that are moving in this direction right now, in 2022 transition because of the timing.
I have a question.
Yes.
One, thank you for this information, specifically in regard to the census.
Mhm.
I would have had no idea of the benefits of doing this and afterwards as opposed to right now. If we did it in 2020 or whether we did it in 2022, and just using our district, like in 2022, technically, the idea would be that there would be 3 of the 5 seats that would be up. Would that still be true, or would it then put everybody into play?
Great question. So yes, no board member's term would be shortened by whenever you would implement. So current board members serve out their current terms to whenever that ends. Also, I neglected to mention this, but in drawing your maps, you are allowed to take into account where the current board members reside, such that you would carve up into 5 districts, each of you in one, instead of pitting 2 of you against each other. And demographers can be remarkably clever, even if 2 of you happen to live, in similarly located places. There are usually ways to make sure that that doesn't happen. So that's always kind of is a factor that comes up. Mhm.
I have a question. Is there a size of the district, of the students in the district that sort of regulate how many members that you have on your board, 5 or 7?
Mhm.
No.
That's really a historical question. So, I mean, typically, there are a few small districts that have 3 board members, right?
Yes.
As Nadine knows well, where I first met Nadine, right up the road. But 5 is more typical for a medium-sized district, 7 is more typical for a larger district. And you could look at going to more trustees, right? But it's not tied to this issue of whether or not you are by trustee area.
Okay, thanks.
More questions?
Yeah, I think just thank you for bringing up about the census and stuff, and I'm all for it. I know one reason I asked Sarah to continue is because Neil's not here, and he's one of the persons who really pushed forward on this, and it was really important for him. I mean, currently we live in the same area, so he was even like, even if I got to resign, this is really important for the community to have district by district elections. So,
Well, Mary and I live around the corner from each
Oh,
other
you
too,
do?
so, we currently reside in clusters. with different
Yeah.
districts.
I've seen that before though, yeah, and it's, but it's amazing what demographers can do and still provide that representation of different communities, so, yeah. Mhm.
But yeah, no, we wanted to do this because we felt like, 1, it was the right thing. 2, we did not want to be in a situation where somebody, again, brought a legal letter to us and basically we had to spend money that we, didn't want to spend. I always think of money I didn't want to spend as money being taken away from kids. So just, I think we're going to continue this to the next meeting, but it seems like the wisest course is to wait until after we have the 2020 census data so that we don't have to do it 2 times, in 2 years in terms of paying for the money.
And
The
then
other,
passing this resolution would protect us in that sense, as far as litigation and.
So it's a question I want to answer carefully in open session, right? Because of those kinds of questions I always am careful about in terms of exposure to liability. What I can say is it's a strategy that many of our clients are adopting right now, and that I have not yet seen challenged. And if I do, I will certainly inform the TM as soon as possible.
any questions, Jill?
Do you take questions from the public?
Yeah.
I bring this up only because I've served for 22 years in elected capacity in trustee areas, so very familiar with them. On the city council, a huge chunk of my district was taken away from me because of all the new growth that was done in the Creek Ridge area. So that would be the only caution I would give you in terms of waiting too long for the census information is you're gonna have to redo your boundaries anyway once the building starts here. And that could be about 5 years. But it's just something to keep in mind that your districts are gonna have to be very fluid as you see the growth here.
Thank you, no, I really appreciate it. Any other comments? Okay, we're not gonna vote on this evening because we're gonna continue it to the next meeting and so that we can discuss it more. Mr. Patel
Just
is
want
here.
a motion to
Motion
continue.
to table it.
The motion to continue.
Yeah, so can I have a motion to continue this to the next meeting?
I make a motion to continue 10.1 to the next meeting.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So we are going to continue that at our next meeting. So. So we're at 12.0, future meetings, agenda times, and adjournment. Does anybody have something that they want to, an item to consider for a future board meeting? Okay, so seeing that, we are going to adjourn at 7 o'clock, and our next meeting will be Wednesday, August 28th, here in the boardroom. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all for coming.